My name is Sabrina Holmes, and I never imagined the man I trusted most would betray me in the cruelest way possible, in our own bedroom, with the nanny I let into my home. Tonight, I'm sharing how I uncovered their deception and turned humiliation into justice they'll never forget. Stay with me, because every detail matters. I knew something was wrong the second I walked into the house. The lights in the hallway were dim, too dim, like someone had deliberately twisted the switch halfway down. My heels clicked softly against the hardwood floor, but the silence wasn't complete. There was a sound upstairs, muffled, rhythmic, too intimate to mistake. I froze at the bottom of the staircase. My daughter was at her friend's for the night. That meant only one other person should have been here. My husband. I gripped the banister. The sound sharpened the longer I stood still. Low voices, then a laugh, too sweet, too familiar. It didn't belong to him. It didn't belong to me. I moved one step at a time, each creak of wood under my weight tightening the coil in my chest. My throat felt raw, but I hadn't even spoken. I didn't need to. The house was telling me everything. The door to my bedroom, our bedroom, was ajar. Just a sliver, but enough to let a faint slice of light spill into the hallway. My pulse hammered in my ears, faster than the soft breaths and half-hidden words drifting out. "Don't worry, she'll never find out," a woman whispered. Her voice, the nanny's. I pressed a hand to the wall to steady myself, though the chill of the paint seeped into my palm like ice water. My stomach twisted. My home, my sanctuary, the bed where I slept every night. It had been turned into a stage for betrayal. I should have turned away. Should have screamed, cried, called someone, anyone, but I didn't. I stood still, every muscle rigid because I wanted to hear every word. "You like it better this way, don't you?" she teased. My husband's voice, low and eager. "God, yes. She has no idea. You're so much better than her." A white-hot flash went through me. Rage, humiliation, and disbelief tangled together until they felt like fire crawling under my skin. The nanny giggled. And in her bed, too. Bold, isn't it? I bit down so hard on the inside of my cheek I tasted blood. My legs shook, but I didn't collapse. I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not here, not now. I pushed the door a fraction wider. The hinges groaned softly. For a second, silence filled the room, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then the bed creaked. A laugh. A moan. The betrayal carried on, shameless, certain I would remain blind. I wanted to burst in, to scream, to rip the sheets from their bodies and throw them into the street. But another part of me, the colder, sharper part, held me back. Because what's louder than rage? Evidence. What's sharper than grief? Revenge. I stepped back into the shadows of the hallway. My chest rose and fell in steady, deliberate breaths. I could feel tears stinging the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. The nanny's laugh cut through the air again, high and mocking. My husband's voice followed, muffled but cruel. "She's so clueless. I could do this forever, and she'd never know." I closed my eyes, and I smiled. If he thought I was clueless, if he thought I was weak, he had no idea who he had just created. I straightened, adjusted my coat on my shoulders, and turned away from the door. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel, dark and silent. My footsteps no longer faltered. Because I wasn't walking away defeated. I was walking away armed. And they? They were already dead. The morning sun used to feel different back then. Softer. Warmer. It slid through the curtains of our kitchen like honey, dripping across the countertops while I sipped coffee and watched my daughter scribble drawings at the table. Those mornings felt safe, ordinary, like nothing could touch the world I had built. I was 35, a wife, a mother, a woman who thought she had struck some kind of fragile balance. My husband, Daniel, worked long hours at his firm, but he provided well. We had a nanny, Claire, to help with our daughter, Emily, so I could focus on my freelance design work. On paper, it all looked stable. 2 careers, a child we adored, a home we had bought together after years of sacrifice. Back then, I believed stability was love. Daniel was the type of man who could charm an entire room with a single smile. I used to fall for it myself. How he'd brush his hand against my back in public, or pull me into his chest when we danced at weddings. Women looked at me like I was lucky, and I believed them. Claire had been with us for 2 years. She was younger, mid-20s, with that effortless energy that made her perfect for chasing after Emily in the park or sitting on the floor building towers of blocks. She laughed easily, moved quickly, and always seemed to know exactly what Emily wanted before I did. It comforted me, at least in the beginning. Life was busy but manageable. Mornings were filled with laughter and the rush of backpacks. Afternoons with work deadlines. Evenings with dinners I tried to make special even when Daniel looked distracted. Sometimes he came home late, smelling faintly of bourbon and the city. I chalked it up to business meetings, client dinners. He would kiss my forehead, murmur about being tired, and head upstairs to shower. I never questioned it. Because when a woman wants to believe she's loved, she'll explain away the shadows. I had dreams then, small but bright ones. Expanding my design business, maybe opening a studio, taking Emily on trips, showing her the world, celebrating 10 years of marriage with Daniel by going back to Italy, where we honeymooned. I carried those plans like delicate glass in my hands, convinced they would never shatter. And in the middle of it all was trust. My blind, absolute trust. Claire became more than an employee. She slipped into the edges of our family life in ways I didn't notice until later. She'd join us for dinners when Daniel insisted, claiming it was rude to let her eat alone. She'd sit with us during movie nights, sometimes laughing louder than me at Daniel's jokes. I thought it was harmless. She was young, almost like a little sister figure. I even confided in her sometimes, telling her when Daniel's distance worried me, when I felt invisible. She'd listen with wide eyes, nodding, assuring me I was overthinking. How easy it is to hand someone the knife they'll later use on you. I remember one Saturday afternoon, a scene I replay now with a sick kind of clarity. We were in the backyard, Emily running across the grass while Daniel grilled steaks. Claire stood beside him, handing him plates, her laughter floating up into the air. It wasn't the laugh that caught me. It was the way Daniel looked at her. A flicker. Quick, but unmistakable. I told myself I imagined it. I had to. Because to admit what I saw would have meant destroying everything I believed was real. That was the ordinary world I lived in. Comfort laced with denial. Still, cracks formed. Small comments Daniel made that sounded sharper than they should have. His sudden criticism of the way I dressed, or the dinners I made. The way he called Claire a lifesaver, more often than he called me beautiful. Each moment was a pebble thrown against the glass. Alone, they meant nothing. Together, they were building to a shatter. But at the time, I didn't see it. I kept moving forward, packing Emily's lunches, scheduling Claire's shifts, kissing Daniel goodnight even when he turned his back. Because that's what you do when you think love is something you can maintain by sheer effort, by showing up, holding on, ignoring the signs. The memory that haunts me most, though, was a Tuesday evening. I had finished a project earlier than expected and decided to surprise Daniel at his office with dinner. But when I called, he didn't answer. Not once. Not after 3 tries. Claire, meanwhile, texted me from the house, asking if Emily could stay up a little later since she wasn't tired yet. Something in me hesitated. A whisper, faint but sharp. I ignored it. That night, when Daniel came home, he was flushed, his shirt slightly wrinkled, his tie loose. He smiled too wide, kissed Emily on the forehead, and told me he'd been swamped with paperwork. Claire came downstairs a minute later, hair damp from a shower, wearing one of those oversized sweatshirts that seemed to swallow her frame. She grinned at Daniel, then at me. Emily just fell asleep. She was an angel tonight. Daniel chuckled. Of course she was. You're amazing with her. And then, Just for a second, their eyes met. A beat too long. A silence too thick. A flicker of something that didn't belong. I told myself it was nothing. That I was exhausted, paranoid, unfair to both of them. I even scolded myself later for doubting. But that was the moment. The red flag. The start of the end. I don't remember unlocking the front door. My hands were trembling, but I wasn't cold. The grocery bags in my arms cut into my fingers, but I barely noticed. The house was too quiet for a Thursday afternoon. Emily was still at her friend's. Daniel was supposed to be in a meeting across town. Claire was off today. She'd asked for the afternoon to visit her sister, or so I believed. I kicked off my shoes quietly, like a guest in my own home. My keys slipped from my fingers and clinked onto the console table, and I winced at the sound. Too loud, too sharp. Then I heard it. A laugh. A woman's voice. Claire's voice. My stomach knotted. I stood frozen in the hallway, my pulse pounding in my ears. I took a slow step forward, each movement deliberate, my mind racing to explain the impossible. Maybe she came back early. Maybe she needed to grab something. Maybe Daniel came home to take a call. But the voices weren't casual. They were intimate. "I missed this bed," Claire said, her voice thick with something I didn't want to name. Daniel's voice followed, low, satisfied. "God, I missed you." The air left my lungs. I crept up the stairs like I was walking toward a guillotine. My legs were numb, but they carried me anyway. Every word I heard sliced deeper. "You think she suspects anything?" Claire asked, teasing. Daniel chuckled. "Sabrina? She's too wrapped up in her work. She trusts everyone, especially you." The betrayal hit me in waves. First disbelief, then confusion, then a slow, burning horror that started in my stomach and crawled up my spine. I reached the top of the stairs. The bedroom door was ajar. My bedroom. Our bed. The sheets I had washed 3 days ago. The candles I had lit last weekend. I could hear the bed creak, their breathing, a moan, a laugh. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. I pressed a hand to the wall to keep from collapsing. Then Claire's voice again, breathless. "Do you ever think about her when we're in here?" Daniel groaned. "Sometimes. It turns me on." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted iron. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the door open and destroy everything in front of me. But I didn't. I stood there, every muscle in my body taut, my heart screaming while my mouth stayed shut. Because something in me, something deep and cold, whispered, "Not yet." I stepped back, slowly, silently, down the hallway, down the stairs. But I didn't leave. I went into the guest room and shut the door. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on the edge of the bed, my body vibrating with rage, my mind replaying every moment, every sign I had ignored. The Tuesday evening when they exchanged that look. The way she started wearing perfume. The sudden emergencies that kept Daniel working late. The way Claire had asked to switch her days. Just subtly enough. I had been living inside their alibi. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard the footsteps. Laughter. The sound of the shower running upstairs. I walked back up quietly, my bare feet silent on the carpet. I reached the bedroom door again. It was open now. The smell hit me first. His cologne, her perfume, our bed. They were in the shower, together. The sound of water splashing, more laughter. I walked into the room. My room. The sheets were still tangled. Her bra hung from the lamp. My pillow was on the floor. I stared at the bed and felt the betrayal crawl across my skin like acid. It wasn't just that they'd slept together. It was where. It was how. The audacity, the arrogance. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had mocked me. And suddenly I remembered something Claire said a few weeks ago. "I love how trusting you are," she'd told me once while folding laundry. I'd laughed. "Why wouldn't I be?" She smiled. "Not everyone deserves it, you know." I had thought she meant Daniel. She had meant herself. I backed out of the room and went to Emily's room. It was quiet, untouched, her little drawings taped to the wall, her stuffed animals lined up on the bed. That's when I cried. Silently. Because this wasn't just about me. They had brought this rot into my daughter's home, into the space I built for her to feel safe, and I had invited the rot in. I cried until the water stopped running upstairs. I pulled myself together, washed my face, stood in front of the mirror until my reflection looked like me again. Then I walked downstairs and made tea, because if they were going to play in my house, in my bed, under my roof, then they were going to learn what it meant to be hunted in my house too. They came down 15 minutes later. Claire's hair was wet, her cheeks flushed. She wore one of my shirts, my shirt, and didn't even bother to button the top all the way. Daniel looked relaxed. Too relaxed. He kissed my cheek as if he hadn't just committed the most intimate betrayal of our marriage. "Hey, babe. You're home early." I smiled. Tight. Controlled. "I am." Claire smiled too, all innocence. "Emily still at her friend's?" I nodded. "Yeah." And then, slowly, "How was your sister?" Claire blinked, just for a second. Daniel looked at her, then back at me. "She was great," Claire said, recovering fast. "Thanks for asking." The silence that followed could have sliced glass. I sipped my tea. "Good," I said. "I'm glad she's alive." Daniel chuckled. "You're in a mood." I looked him dead in the eye and said nothing, because now I knew. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was calculated. It was repeated. It was planned. And they thought I would never find out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, every breath heavy with betrayal. I thought about every time I had defended Claire. Every time I had excused Daniel's distance. Every time I had blamed myself for their lack of intimacy. And I realized something terrifying. I had built my life on the belief that love meant trust. But now I knew the truth. Love is nothing without respect. And once that respect dies, the only thing left is war. At 3 a.m, I sat up in bed. The house was silent again. I whispered into the dark, "They think I'm still asleep." Then I smiled. They have no idea I've already woken up. And just like that, the grief turned to something sharper, cleaner, more useful. Revenge. Not loud, not impulsive, not messy. Cold, calculated, precise. If they wanted to turn my home into a game, then I was going to change the rules. Starting now. The morning after, the house smelled like betrayal. I couldn't walk past the bedroom door without feeling bile rise in my throat. The sheets were changed, the pillows fluffed, but it didn't matter. The room was tainted. Every corner of the house was tainted. But they acted like nothing had happened. Daniel kissed me before work, the same routine he had perfected over the years. His lips brushed mine lightly, quick and dismissive, as though I were an obligation rather than a wife. Claire smiled at me over the breakfast table, hair neatly tied back. Emily balanced on her hip as if she were part of the family. The audacity was almost laughable. If I hadn't been hollowed out the night before, maybe I would have broken then, screamed, thrown them both out. But I didn't. Something inside me had shifted. The part of me that once begged for honesty, for love, had gone quiet. What replaced it was sharper, colder. I wasn't going to beg for answers anymore. I was going to take everything. It started with silence, watching, listening, every word, every look between them, every pause where their eyes lingered too long. I filed it away. Daniel thought he was clever. He treated me like I was blind, oblivious. He still muttered about late meetings, still came home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He underestimated me, and that underestimation was the first weapon I sharpened. One night, while he showered, his phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't have to guess the name. Claire's text glowed on the screen. "Can't wait for tomorrow." Same time? I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Proof was better collected quietly. I set my tea down, staring at the glow of the phone until the screen went black. My reflection lingered faintly on the glass, unrecognizable in its calmness. I realized then, I wasn't broken. I was transforming. Claire underestimated me, too. She slipped through the house as if she owned it, humming while she folded laundry, telling me how much Emily adored her. She treated me like a background character in my own life. I watched her more closely. Her smiles at Daniel, her long glances when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she leaned in too close when handing him a plate at dinner. She thought she was winning. She thought she had already taken my place. Good. Let her think that. Because people blinded by arrogance always step right into the trap. The turning point came on a Saturday morning. Daniel announced he was heading into the office again. His voice was casual, almost bored, but his eyes flickered toward Claire when he thought I wasn't paying attention. "I'll keep Emily busy," Claire offered quickly, her tone light, practiced. I smiled at them both. "Perfect," I said. Inside, something snapped. Not in grief this time, but in clarity. I wasn't just going to expose them, I was going to destroy them. That evening, I walked past the mirror in the hallway. I paused, staring at myself the way you stare at a stranger. My eyes weren't swollen anymore. My mouth wasn't trembling. My face looked steady, carved into something harder. And for the first time, I believed it. I wasn't the victim. I was the executioner sharpening the blade. The decision wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was the quietest, deadliest moment of my life. From that day on, I carried myself differently. Daniel noticed. He asked once if I was all right. I smiled and said, "Of course." Claire tilted her head when she caught me watching her, then laughed nervously and looked away. They didn't see it. They couldn't see it. Because people never noticed the silence right before the storm. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, my mind racing, not with grief anymore, but with precision. How do you dismantle two people who are certain you'll never fight back? You don't shout. You don't strike wildly. You plan. You wait. You let them believe they're safe. By midnight, I knew what I had to do. I turned off the light, stared into the darkness, and whispered to myself, "It begins now." The decision was one thing. The plan was another. If I wanted revenge, I couldn't simply expose them. That would be too quick, too merciful. What I wanted was permanence. Something that would strip them of dignity, money, and the smug confidence they wore like perfume. So I started small, silent, careful. The first weapon was information. Daniel guarded his phone like it was an organ. He never left it unattended for long. But arrogance makes people sloppy. One night, after he passed out on the couch with a half-empty glass of whiskey, I eased it from his hand. Face ID. Locked. But Daniel had a tell. When he scrolled through something, he often tilted the phone just slightly, enough for me to glimpse his code before. 6 digits. A sequence I had seen his fingers tap into his work laptop. I tried it. The screen lit up. Unlocked. My breath caught in my throat. I expected guilt, maybe excuses. What I found was worse. Message threads, photos, videos. Claire. Always Claire. I forced myself to keep reading, to memorize, to screenshot. I transferred everything quietly to a backup drive I bought with cash the next day. Every image, every word, time-stamped, undeniable. But it wasn't just about sex. Buried between their filth were discussions that chilled me deeper. You think she'll ever find out? Even if she did, she's too weak to do anything. Don't worry. Once the accounts are set, we're untouchable. Accounts. Plural. That single word changed everything. It wasn't just betrayal of the body. It was betrayal of the future. He wasn't just humiliating me. He was siphoning money, building a life with her. And suddenly, the revenge sharpened into something bigger than humiliation. It became survival. I started studying his movements. His late nights, his expense reports, the credit card bills he carelessly tossed into the drawer. I learned where the money was going. A rental apartment across town, tucked under Claire's name. He was building her a new life on my back. I copied everything, quietly, patiently. But the more I gathered, the closer I came to being caught. One night, while pulling receipts from his briefcase, I heard his footsteps in the hallway. My hands shook, stuffing papers back into the folder. The door creaked open. He squinted at me. "What are you doing?" I smiled, heart pounding. "Looking for the electricity bill. I think I misplaced it." He grunted, kissed my forehead, and walked off. I didn't exhale until I heard the shower running upstairs. Another time, Claire nearly caught me when I installed a discreet camera in the living room clock. She walked in early, humming, her arms full of groceries. "Need help?" she asked. I froze, screwdriver in hand. "Just fixing the batteries." She laughed, tossing her hair. "You're always so handy." If only she knew. Within weeks, I had hours of footage. Not always clear, but enough. Daniel's hand brushing her thigh when they thought I wasn't looking. The stolen kisses in the kitchen. Her whispering promises that she was better than me. I didn't just want evidence. I wanted an arsenal. So I broadened the plan. I went to the bank, quietly pulling statements, tracing transactions Daniel thought I'd never see. Transfers to an account under Claire's maiden name. Thousands, moved in increments. The pieces began to click. They weren't just cheating. They were plotting. He was preparing to leave me broke, humiliated, raising our daughter alone while he built a shiny new life with her. No, not anymore. Every discovery fueled me, but also tightened the wire of suspense. One slip, and the whole act would crumble before I was ready. One evening, as I sat at my desk backing up files, Emily patted in, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, why are you still awake?" I pulled her into my lap, my throat tightening. "Just finishing some work, sweetheart." She laid her head on my chest. "You work too much." I kissed her hair. Not for long, because this wasn't just my war. It was hers too, even if she didn't know it. The plan grew teeth. Step 1. Gather undeniable evidence. Done. Step 2. Secure my future. I met with a lawyer under the pretense of estate planning. I asked questions that revealed everything I needed. Custody leverage, financial separation, how infidelity and hidden accounts could dismantle Daniel in court. The lawyer never suspected the truth, but I walked out armed with a map. Step 3. Set the stage. Public. Painful. Irreversible. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Daniel and Claire didn't just deserve exposure. They deserved annihilation in front of everyone who believed their lies. But as I built the plan, I almost faltered. There was a night, late, when Daniel slid into bed beside me, kissed my shoulder, and whispered, "I love you." The words rang hollow, but for a second, my chest cracked. 10 years of marriage, the father of my child, the man who once swore vows under a church roof. For a second, I wanted to believe him again. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new email notification. An invoice. From the rental apartment. Paid by Daniel. The softness inside me died instantly. That was the last time I ever doubted myself. By now, the evidence was overflowing. Screenshots, bank transfers, videos. Even a recording I captured of them in my own kitchen, whispering about when the timing is right. I didn't need to imagine anymore. I knew. And knowledge is the most dangerous weapon in the hands of someone who has nothing left to lose. I began rehearsing, visualizing, how it would unfold, what I would say, how I would look at them when I tore their world apart. Daniel thought I was slipping into passivity. He bragged about a client dinner one night, not realizing I had already seen the receipt. A dinner for 2, not 3. Claire pranced around in tighter clothes, humming like a woman already victorious. They were blind, completely blind. And I smiled through it all, because the plan was no longer just an idea. It was a living thing, growing, sharp, ready. The final piece slid into place one afternoon when Daniel carelessly left his laptop open. I didn't have to dig far. Hidden folders, drafted emails, legal documents. He was preparing to shift assets, reroute accounts, lock me out of what I had helped build. That was it. The moment I knew. My revenge wasn't just personal anymore. It was justice. I closed the laptop gently, smoothed the fabric of my dress, and looked out the window at the fading sun. The reflection in the glass stared back at me, calm, unshaken. I whispered, steady and certain, "It's ready." Revenge, I learned, doesn't arrive in a single blow. It arrives in waves, each one stronger than the last. I chose the battlefield carefully. Daniel was due to host a client dinner at our house, a gathering of colleagues, investors, and family friends. He insisted it was to show stability, to prove he was a man whose home life reflected his professional success. He wanted me smiling at his side, playing the perfect wife. I agreed. And silently, I sharpened the knife. The night arrived. The house glowed with warm lights, glasses clinked, and laughter floated through the rooms. Guests mingled, sipping wine, marveling at the curated perfection of our living room. Daniel thrived in the spotlight, shaking hands, delivering jokes. Claire was there too, dressed elegantly but modestly, serving hors d'oeuvres as though she were nothing more than the hired help. She smiled at me once across the room. Smug. Secure. I smiled back, because her security was about to collapse. Dinner began. The table was long, adorned with candles and polished silverware. Emily was upstairs asleep, oblivious to the storm building beneath her roof. Daniel tapped his glass to draw attention, thanking everyone for coming, praising Claire for helping organize. His hand brushed hers as he said it. Subtle, quick, but I saw it. Everyone saw it. They just didn't know what it meant. I let the meal flow, course after course, conversation thick with admiration for Daniel's success. And then, as dessert plates were set down, I rose from my seat. "Before we close the night," I said softly, my voice carrying over the clinking glasses, "I want to share something, a celebration, if you will." Daniel looked at me, confused but smiling. "Of course, sweetheart. Go ahead." I picked up the remote hidden beneath the folds of my napkin. With one click, the room's main screen flickered to life. Guests turned in surprise, murmuring. At first, a slideshow began, photos of family vacations, birthdays, happy moments. Daniel relaxed, chuckling, nodding at friends. "My wife loves to document everything," he said. Then the slideshow changed. A photo of Daniel and Claire, in our kitchen, his hand on her waist, her lips pressed to his cheek. The room went silent. Another image. Them tangled together on our bed, their faces unmistakable. Gasps filled the air. Forks clattered against plates. Daniel shot to his feet. "Sabrina, what the hell are you doing?" I tilted my head, calm, steady, showing them the truth. The video rolled next, grainy footage from the living room clock camera. Daniel pulling Claire close, whispering into her ear. Her laugh echoing across the speakers. Claire's face drained of color. This isn't... But the screen betrayed her. Audio played, their voices sharp and damning. "She'll never know. She's too weak to fight back. You and me, Daniel. Soon it'll just be us." Murmurs erupted around the table. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably. One investor whispered harshly, "This is the man handling our accounts?" Daniel's face flushed crimson. He lunged for the remote, but I stepped back, holding it tight. "Sit down," I said coldly. The command landed harder than I expected. He froze, his authority stripped bare in front of everyone. The video ended with a final clip. Daniel transferring funds into Claire's account, spreadsheets pulled from his laptop. Numbers didn't lie. Neither did the timestamp. I turned to the guests, my voice level. For years I trusted Daniel. I trusted Claire. But while I built this home, they conspired under this roof, stealing my husband's fidelity, stealing our family's money, stealing my dignity. Every eye in the room was on them. Every ounce of respect Daniel had cultivated bled out onto the floor. He tried to recover. This is taken out of context. Context? I snapped, my voice slicing the air. The context is simple. You betrayed your wife, your daughter, and every person who believed your mask. Claire's chair screeched as she stood. She's lying. She fabricated this. But the evidence drowned her. Screenshots, videos, transfers, all projected, undeniable. One colleague muttered, "God, this is humiliating." Another whispered, "His career is over." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "Turn it off, Sabrina." I leaned forward, staring him down. You wanted this house to reflect your success. Tonight, it reflects your failure. The silence that followed was suffocating. Guests began to stand, shaking their heads, muttering excuses to leave. Investors pulled phones from their pockets, already texting, already distancing themselves. Daniel's empire was crumbling in real time, and I wasn't done. As the last slide faded, I held up a folder. Everything you just saw has already been sent to the firm's board, and to my lawyer. Daniel's face went pale. You wouldn't... I already did. The weight of those words landed like a guillotine. He sank back into his chair, jaw tight, eyes blazing. Claire stammered, reaching for him. Daniel, say something. He shoved her hand away. For the first time, cracks split their alliance. Perfect. Because betrayal doesn't just deserve exposure, it deserves isolation. The guests cleared out, one by one, leaving only the three of us in the ruins of the evening. Daniel turned on me, his voice low and venomous. Do you have any idea what you've done? I met his glare with steel. Do you? Claire clutched her purse, trembling. She's insane, Daniel. We can still fix this. I laughed, cold and sharp. Fix this? Claire, you'll be lucky to get a babysitting job after tonight. And Daniel... I let the silence hang, heavy, before finishing. You won't just lose me. You'll lose everything. He lunged forward, but stopped short when I lifted my phone. One more step, I warned, and the final file goes public. His eyes flickered. He knew I wasn't bluffing, because the final file was the insurance. The one thing I hadn't shown yet. The shocking final blow came the next morning. Daniel woke to his phone buzzing nonstop. Calls, messages, emails flooding in. The board had suspended him pending investigation. Investors had pulled out. His accounts were frozen, flagged for irregular transfers. And then the story broke, because I leaked it. All of it. Local news outlets picked it up first. Prominent attorney caught in affair and embezzlement scandal. Photos, videos, bank statements. Daniel's face plastered across screens, not as a leader, but as a liar. By noon, Claire's name was trending too. Parents warned each other not to hire her. Friends unfollowed her. Her number leaked online. Daniel stormed into the kitchen, his face wild. You ruined me! I stirred my coffee slowly. No, Daniel. You ruined yourself. I just showed the world. He slammed his fists on the counter. You think you've won? I looked up at him, calm as steel. I haven't just won. I've ended you. The final file had done its work, and there was no way back. When you destroy someone publicly, the silence that follows is louder than their protests. The morning after the dinner, the house felt hollow. Not mine, not his, just a shell. Daniel paced, red-eyed, his phone buzzing until he hurled it against the wall. Claire had left before sunrise, mascara streaked, whispering about finding a way to fix this, as if there were still glue strong enough to hold together the pieces. By noon, Daniel's office released a statement. Suspension pending investigation. Legal jargon wrapped around humiliation. I watched him read it aloud, his hands trembling, his voice cracking. For the first time, I saw him without armor. Not the charming attorney, not the confident husband, just a man stripped bare. He tried to call people, friends, colleagues, even family. Most didn't answer. Those who did spoke in clipped tones, distancing themselves, shutting doors one by one. Betrayal poisons reputations faster than fire consumes paper. Claire's downfall was swifter. Parents who once trusted her with their children texted, "Don't bother coming back." A video of her giggling in my kitchen spread online, clipped and replayed until her name became synonymous with shame. I heard she left town within days. No goodbye, no apology, just flight. Daniel didn't have that luxury. He still had me. And I wasn't finished. The divorce papers arrived quickly. My lawyer filed with every shred of evidence attached: infidelity, financial misconduct, embezzlement. The court leaned heavily in my favor. Custody of Emily? Mine. The house? Mine. The accounts he hadn't siphoned away? Frozen, pending investigation. Daniel begged. Not loudly. He didn't have the dignity left for that. Quietly, in the late hours when his voice cracked under the weight of loss. Please, Sabrina, don't take everything. Don't ruin me completely. I looked at him across the table, calm as stone. You ruined yourself. I just handed you the mirror. He wept. And I felt nothing. But revenge doesn't just live in legal documents. It lives in the moments when they realize there is no recovery. Weeks later, I passed him on the street. He looked older, shoulders hunched, hair thinning from stress. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but the passerby who recognized him first spat on the ground and muttered, "Disgusting." Daniel shut his mouth, lowered his head, and walked away. That was when I knew. The punishment had outlived the crime. Emily never asked about Claire. Children sense when someone no longer belongs. Daniel visited, under supervision, trying to smile, trying to pretend. She hugged him politely, but when she ran back to me, I saw the truth. She felt safer with me. The bond he'd broken could not be rebuilt. Justice isn't just losing money, it's losing legacy. And yet, I wanted one last stroke. One final blow they wouldn't see coming. So I waited. Patient. Quiet. The court date arrived for Daniel's disciplinary hearing. Colleagues, board members, and a handful of reporters packed the chamber. He stood there, hollow, trying to argue that his actions had been exaggerated, twisted. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Holmes, do you deny the evidence submitted by your wife?" Daniel hesitated, sweat glistening on his forehead. "It was private. It should have stayed private. My marriage shouldn't be used as—" I rose from my seat in the gallery, my voice steady. "This isn't just about a marriage. It's about trust, fraud, and respect." All eyes turned to me. Daniel's face drained of color. The judge nodded. "Mrs. Holmes, your testimony is already on record. Do you wish to add something?" "Yes." I handed the clerk a final file. One Daniel had never seen. The projector flickered. A new video appeared. Not just Claire this time. Others. Women from his office. Assistants. A secretary he once claimed to fire for incompetence. Footage, messages, money trails. The pattern stretched back years. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, outrage. Daniel staggered forward, his hands outstretched. "Sabrina, please." I didn't flinch. "You thought Claire was your only mistake? She was just the last one dumb enough to stay." The gavel struck. Order restored. But the damage was done. Not just suspension. Disbarment proceedings. Criminal charges looming. The look on his face, pure, naked horror, was the last image I wanted burned into my memory. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen. The same kitchen where Claire once laughed, where Daniel once lied. The house was quiet, safe again. I poured a glass of wine and let the silence settle around me. Not grief, not rage, just the calm after the storm. I had taken everything they thought untouchable, his career, her reputation, their arrogance. I hadn't just won. I had rewritten the ending. And yet, the real twist wasn't what I did to them. It was what I became. I used to believe trust was my greatest strength. But trust is fragile, easy to weaponize. Now, my strength was clarity. Daniel and Claire thought they had chosen me as their victim. They didn't realize they'd created their executioner. And as I finished my wine, I whispered into the dark, "This isn't just revenge. It's rebirth." Thank you for watching my story until the very end. Every betrayal leaves scars, but sometimes it also gives us the strength to rise stronger than before. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed a betrayal that changed someone's life forever? Share your experiences in the comments below, because your voice matters here. And if this story moved you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, so you never miss the next tale of justice served cold.